All right, Doyle, we are recording. So, hello everyone. Welcome back. Glad you could make it. Hope you didn't have to do anything drastic to get through the snowpocalypse. Snowmageddon. You still have the same number of pets as when you started. All right. So, well, my first note is right effort. It's sort of a cats and dogs kind of set of recommendations. There's just all sorts of details that get lumped under this right effort. So yes, we're on right effort now. This is the wrinkle. Last week we finished up the ethical wrinkles. So I'm just to orient us here in the Eightfold Path. This is wrinkle number 6. We're on the downhill slope, man. This is it. Except we're going to talk about mindfulness a lot. So that'll be a slowdown again. All right. Everybody hearing me online? Is that all good? We'll assume it is. Very good. So right effort. There's a lot of detail that traditionally gets put under this category of right effort. But the overall idea is that you do have kind of control over your mental environment, that you're not just at its mercy. If you're in a bad mood or just stuck in swirling thoughts, that it's not fate, you're not helpless. You can do things to genuinely change your mood, well, other than just to pretend to be happy, right, which is sort of the advice people end up with, turn that frown upside down. But are there any thoughts or questions or suggestions or demands before I go off on my long soliloquy? How are we feeling? All right.
Well, this is what we've done so far.
So far?
Yeah.
The Noble Eightfold Path? Yeah. So, right understanding, right? And that took forever. That's the Four Noble Truths, and we did karma first, and then the Four Noble Truths, and then right effort, which was metta and nonviolence and renunciation, my favorite word, right? And so that's the second fold. And then 3, 4, and 5, right speech, right action, right livelihood. And now here, so we covered the sort of the understanding part of it, the first two, and the ethical parts of it, and now we're in the mental training. Now we're in the taming the mind end of the Eightfold Path. And right effort is the intro to that. You learn about right effort, and then, not that these are really in order, you do them all at once, but right effort sort of introduces kind of the framework for meditation, because meditation is also working with the mind. And right effort is kind of some non-meditative things and leading up to meditation and including meditation towards the end. So it's kind of the transition. And so there's 4 parts to right effort. Because there must be a list. So the first one is to prevent the arising of unwholesome states of mind. So the idea is you don't want to even let them get a foothold. That's right. The best way to keep or the best way to get a bird out of your house is to not let a bird in your house, right? So prevent the arising. The second one is to abandon unwholesome states of mind that have already arisen. So the bird's in the house, and now what are we going to do? The third one, so that was about unwholesome states of mind. The third one is to develop wholesome states of mind. Sounds good. And the fourth one is to maintain wholesome states of mind. I think they really just put that in there to make 4, But yeah, so first we talk about the problem mental aspects, and then the good ones that we would like to see more of. So, unwholesome states. They can enter our minds through the 6 senses, right? The 5 physical senses, and then thinking. As we've said, in Buddhism, the mind is one of the senses because it perceives thoughts. And really, this thing about the 6th sense being your mental perceptions, it's kind of its own teaching in itself. Because if you think of your thoughts as something that you don't generate them so much as perceive them. You know, if your thoughts are like sense experiences, the way sight and sound are, it means that thoughts really come from outside yourself, right? However you think about that. So your thoughts are not you, because at least some thoughts just show up spontaneously, right? You didn't ask for it; it just popped up, or it came in response to something else that happened. And so that's kind of like a bird calls in the forest, right? We perceive thoughts that just, thoughts just drift into view from who knows where. But what that means is they can also just drift right back out again, as long as you don't hang on to them. See, this is the problem, is a lot of thoughts and moods will fade away as easily as they came, except that we start holding on to them or trying to push them away, and then you're just stuck to them, right? It's the tar baby principle. If you try to push away, it's as bad as pulling. So yes, we're talking about unwholesome states of mind. How do we deal with them? So what are they? Well, traditionally, there's 5 things that get included in this list of unwholesome states of mind, and they are called the 5 hindrances. This is a classic Theravada term. Everybody talks about the hindrances all the time. And they are. The first one is sensual desire or greed. And sensual, it's kind of like, get your mind out of the gutter. In Theravada Buddhism, when you hear the word sensual, it does include what people think of when you hear sensual, but it includes really anything that you're experiencing in this world that involves the 5 senses, because we are sort of addicted to all sensory experience. People want to see and hear and touch and taste and all of that kind of stuff. We are drawn to it. It's just like we hunger for food. We hunger for sense experience. And now that's like the 4 nutriments, which is a great teaching, which I don't think we're going to talk about now, but maybe later. Later in the course, we might hit the 4. Anyway. So yeah, this is a sensual world. It involves experiences with the senses. That's really it, senses, and sensual as in senses. So greed, the first one. The second one, as you might have guessed, is ill will. So either you're trying to get hold of things or you're trying to push them away. Those are the first 2 unwholesome states of mind. So that, obviously there's some things, like when you're hungry, you do go find food, and if there's a dangerous thing around, you do try to protect yourself from it, so that what's unwholesome about the unwholesome states is when they stick around, even when they're not appropriate. You're always thinking about what you don't have and what you can get, or that guy that you just think about all day, how much you don't like him or whatever. Those are unwholesome states of mind. They're not rational. They're not related to your current experience. They're stuck to you. You're stuck in a bad state of mind. So, greed, the first one, or desire. The second one, ill will. The third one, dullness and drowsiness. And I love, when this first started getting translated, like 2 centuries ago, it would get translated as sloth and torpor, which I just love that. But nobody, it's not the way we talk.
That's a legal firm, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Bailey Thompson, sloth and torpor. So now, dullness and drowsiness. That's the third mental. And the 5 hindrances are really related. They're often focused on meditation. That's kind of where the list emerged from. But obviously, bad states of mind or difficult states of mind can you can have them all day. But especially during meditation, they become a problem. If you're falling asleep, hard to meditate. Or if you're just, anyway, we'll talk about it. We'll talk more about them. I'm explaining too much. I'm supposed to just give the list in this part of the talk. So, sensual desire or greed, ill will, dullness and drowsiness. The 4th one is restlessness and worry. So these first 4 are in pairs, right? Greed or hatred, dullness or restlessness, self-explanatory, I think. And the last one is doubt. Doubt is the 5th hindrance, and the idea behind doubt is it's a hindrance because if you doubt the path or you doubt your ability to follow the path enough, then your motivation is gone. You can't, it's like, what's the point of even trying to meditate? Well, I don't want to hear another, Dharma talk or whatever. None of this is working for me. I don't think I'm in the wrong place. I don't understand it. When you just have all of that kind of questions about the path, and then that becomes a hindrance. So those are the 5. And so now what do? We got 4 things, right? Got to prevent their arising and get rid of them if they have shown up. So how do we prevent the arising of the hindrances? And the recommendation is that we prevent the arising of the hindrances by guarding the 6 senses with mindfulness. So the idea is if you want to keep something from even getting a foothold, you have to be watching it. You have to be watching for it. This is one of the things that mindfulness helps you with and we haven't talked about mindfulness yet, but as you develop your mindfulness, then you are like this observer who's just checking in on what's going on in your mind all the time, and no matter what you're doing, there's always kind of this awareness of what the mind is like at this moment. And so you can see, I'm just starting to get all wrapped up about X, Y, Z, and so you catch it early. And if you catch it early, then a lot of times you can say, well, I don't want to fume about that all afternoon. That's ridiculous. How useless. And so you avoid the pothole. You just skip right past it because you're vigilant. You're guarding the senses. Let's see. And so to talk a little more about the what these really are. There's this famous sutra that gives you these metaphors for each of the 5 hindrances. How can I think about these 5 hindrances? And I don't know if this is helpful or not, but everybody, this is, that you always hear about these metaphors. And so, by golly, you're going to hear about them from me too. So, sensual desire, greed and grasping and all of that. The Buddhist metaphor is, imagine a bowl of water mixed with black, turmeric, dark green, or crimson dye. So dyes of the day, I guess. So you got this bowl of water and it's full of this colorful muck. If a man with good eyesight were to look at the reflection of his own face in it, he would not know or see it as it really was. In the same way, when a man dwells with his heart possessed and overwhelmed by sense desires, the first one, then he cannot know or see as it really is what is to his own profit, what is to the profit of others, or to the profit of both. So your value, so the hindrances can screw up your values, like what's important, what's not important. They can cause you to lose sight of this. And then it goes on, even sacred words he has long studied are not clear to him. Not to mention those he has not studied. So all of your spiritual training starts to evaporate when you're in the grip of the hindrances. This is the implication, and it's easy to see how grasping at things is like that. Your values are getting confused. You're in the grip of a mood that's causing you not to think straight about things. You're deluded, right? One of the poisons. Greed, hatred, and delusion. Delusion's always the source of all of these things. So, yes, your views are distorted. So that's the first one. A bowl of colorful dyes you can't see clearly. The second one, ill will, so hate and aversion, all that sort of thing. The Buddha says, imagine a bowl of water heated on a fire, boiling up and bubbling over. And then the rest is the same. If a man with good eyesight were to look at the reflection of his own face, he would not know it or see it as it really was. So he couldn't tell what was profitable for him or another or both. His spiritual, understanding, disappears. You lose, ill will, hate, aversion, obviously, will cause all that to go askew. The third one, dullness and drowsiness. So, you're low energy, right? Not to use a popular phrase. You're low energy. You're too tired to think. Your awareness is weak or shrunken is another metaphor that gets used. Your mind is blank. You're staring off into space. You can't get your mind attached to what it needs, to deal with what you're trying to do. And so the Buddha's metaphor, imagine a bowl of water covered over with slimy moss and water plants. If a man with good eyesight were to look at the reflection of his own face in it, he would not know or see it as it really was, etc., etc. You don't know what's valuable. You've lost track of your understanding. So full of plants with slimy, I guess this idea of it's just been sitting there for too long. So the fourth one, restlessness and worry. So you can't focus, you're irritated, obsessive, you're distracted, restlessness and worry. We all know, I think, about those. Most of us do. So the Buddha says, imagine a bowl of water ruffled by the wind so that the water trembled, eddied, and rippled. If a man with good eyesight were to try to see his reflection, etc., etc. And so the mind can't is flittering hither and yon about things that are not what you want to be thinking about. And so you can't hold on to your understanding of things. And the last one, doubt. And so, like I said, this is really sort of paralyzing doubt about the Buddhist path or your ability to follow it. You can't muster up the energy to even practice right if you're so full of doubt. And he says, imagine a bowl of water, agitated, stirred up, muddied, and put in a dark place. So that, as we're running out of things to do with a bowl of water here, but yeah, and so it's doubt muddies the mind, right? So that we can't see what we're even trying to do. So these are the metaphors. Now you have heard them. Consider yourselves traditionally taught. Any thoughts at this point?
Kind of a doubt one.
Right.
It seems kind of faithy. It's like.
Right.
It seems a little stands out from the other seven.
To us it does, right?
Yeah.
Because our antenna goes up. Boing. What do you mean? Doubt, so faith? That's because you're thinking faith is the opposite of doubt, right? But in this case, the faith that Buddhism asks you to have is sort of the faith of a scientist trying to test his hypothesis, right? You have to give the teachings a solid try. This is all it asks. It's like, don't believe it just because I said it. I mean, that's right out of the Sutra to the Kalamas. Don't believe it just because I said it or the Holy Book says it. That's not what we're saying. But you have to be willing to give it an honest college try. Really practice, even if you don't know if it works or not. Because, you have to engage with the teachings before you see their value. Because this is not an intellectual argument, right? We're not trying to convince you for philosophy class so that you'll write down the right theory on the final exam. We want to change your thinking. And to do that, you really have to engage. You have to really try to go through the world as a Buddhist. And so that's where doubt gets in the way. It's like you just don't, you can't work up the effort to really engage with it. So this is my sermon about doubt, in Buddhism, that yes, no one in Buddhism is interested in you believing something because they told it to you. That's
there's
not
kind
helpful.
of like with the scientific model, you would have skepticism about your hypothesis.
Right, because you want to know if it works or not. Right. It is a test.
At the same time, you have confidence in the method.
Well, you're willing to give it a chance, right?
That's what they're asking.
It's like, no, really, if you sleep with this under your pillow, you'll improve a whole letter grade. It's like, I'll try it. Hopefully Buddhism sounds a little more likely than that. But I mean,
That's been tested.
right. It's like, I'll try anything, please. So, right. And sometimes, there are those of us who are so skeptical that we really doubt if Buddhism has anything for us at all. But we're so desperate for an answer. I mean, I'm just thinking of myself back in the day. It's like, I have to find something, because I'm not getting anywhere. Just, trying to philosophize through everything. It's not getting me where I need to be. So anyway, where are we at? What are we doing? So that's what the hindrances are, and just the first one's very easy. How do you prevent them from arising? guard the mind, catch them on the front end, and just head them off at the pass. So the difficult one is next. Abandon arisen unwholesome states. And now this is a laundry list of just different things that you can try when there's something that just won't leave you alone. You know it's dumb for you to be thinking about it. You can't stop thinking about it. What do you do? So this is not, and I have a note later on, it's like, you're not supposed to be doing these all the time. This is when you have this special case where it's like, I just really recognize that this thought or this mood is stuck to me. I can't get rid of it. What are some ways I can try to jostle it loose? So, and this is where, Buddhism is a bit like cognitive-based therapy, because cognitive-based therapy, not that I'm a psychologist, but the Wikipedia version, right? When you're dealing with a problem, your habitual thought patterns are often causing you more trouble than the actual problem, right? It's like you're thinking about it in a not constructive way. So you have to replace your thoughts that are not helping you at all with something a little more constructive, and then you can engage with the problem properly. I mean, that's kind of where this is going from. Now, in Buddhism, we call these patterns of thought sankharas. Another funny word, but, well, we'll be talking about sankharas more. Samskaras, I guess, is the Mahayana Sanskrit pronunciation. Yes, samskaras. But anyway, so patterns of thought, that's what this is all about. So what do we do? And there are some suggestions for each of the hindrances. Like for greedy or hateful thoughts, the first one is just replacement. Replace the unskillful thought with a skillful one. And a metaphor that occurs in the sutras, it's like a carpenter when he's got a bad peg that's stuck in the wood and he's trying to get it out, he'll take a little bit smaller peg, right, and put it up against there and take his hammer and just bam, and then the bad peg's out and the good peg falls through and now we're clear, and so this is just apply the opposite, because the mind, it's true, at least in my experience, the mind can't really think about two conflicting things at once. Thoughts tend to collect other thoughts that are like them. And so if you put, the opposite sort of thought in there, then, maybe its magnetism will get you towards where you want to go. So, if you're greedy for something, you just can't think about how I don't have it and I want it and I got to get it and how do I get it or whatever. Buddhism recommends think about its impermanence. Think about its unsatisfactory qualities. Think about the stress of trying to get hold of this thing and hang on to it, because so often when we're obsessed about something, we're just obsessed with the good parts, but everything substantial in this world has two sides. And you're not trying to say, no, you can never have the red sports car, that's not it at all. It's just that, it's like, well, there's going to be a big down payment and a big monthly payment and lots of maintenance, and what happens the first time it gets scratched, and you're just trying to calm yourself down, just reel it back in. So it's like, I'll think about the red sports car tomorrow. I don't have to, figure out what my second job's going to be to pay for it while I'm trying to meditate. Right. And even when you get the red sports car, you won't have it forever, like everything else in this world. Buddhism's happy thought about all worldly things. It will leave you one way or the other eventually. So take a breath. All worldly achievements will be forgotten eventually, right? I always think 1,000 years from now, nobody will ever know I was here, It's very unlikely my name will be in the history books, and if it is, they'll have it all wrong, So, anyway. All right. So, think about the drawbacks for things that you're just stuck on. So, ill will. We already talked about. Metta is the answer. I hate that guy. I hate this situation. It sounds impossible that you can generate goodwill towards things that just completely aggravate you. But I am here to tell you, from personal experience, I can love anyone. Sometimes I have to stop and really put my mind to it. But, I can hold anyone in mind, even the people in this world that drive me the craziest, and I can feel love for them like a mother loves her child. I mean, it can be done. This is a possible thing. And it's very helpful, because when you're just full of hate and aggravation and ill will, this is not good for your spiritual practice, I can tell you, and once again, we're not trying to say that person's okay, that person doesn't have bad qualities. That's not the point at all. The point is to get you out of the state of mind that you're in. There's no need for you to obsess about this person that you read about in the newspaper every day and that it's making you feel like jumping off a cliff. Not that I'm thinking of anything in particular, but you need to take a break from that feeling, and the way you do it is metta. That's the traditional recommendation. There are many other ways. Drinking, hitting your head with a bat, but metta is the recommendation from Buddhism. All right, where are we at? So, that's greedy thoughts, ill will, dullness and drowsiness. I'll just say what they are. So the first one is to visualize energy. And that sort of almost assumes that you have a pretty good meditation practice, that you can actually visualize something and hold it in your brain for more than a few seconds. But yeah, so there you can visualize energy. Like I say, the body is this river of sensation. And so you can feel more energized just by focusing on the idea of feeling more energized. But the second recommendation is much more practical. Get up and move around. It's like if you're falling asleep on the cushion, get off the cushion. So take a walk, breathe in the sunshine or the snowfall or whatever, and get some energy to you. Here's one, and Ajahn Sumedho recommends this one. He found it useful. You can use your tiredness, your dullness, your drowsiness as a meditation topic, and so you treat it as this intruder, that's come into your mind. I'm feeling all this drowsiness and torpor and sloth and all that good stuff, What's it really like? What does it feel like? What does it feel like everywhere in my body? What does it do to my mind? You just make it an object of study. It sounds ridiculous, but I've had some success with that as well. And then dullness and drowsiness, sometimes you need to sleep, and people forget this. Spiritual practice cannot overcome all things, especially when you're still just on the path like us. But sleep is sometimes called the poor man's nirvana, right? So it can work wonders sometimes when that's what's called for. And another thing, but about that, you'll hear people always say that, they present mindfulness like it just cures everything. And I certainly recommend it if, you find it helpful. But a lot of times people will say, oh, meditation helps you fall asleep. That can be true. And I have used sort of shamatha meditation to calm down, to fall asleep. But it's also true that people who are go to retreats and they're meditating all day, it makes you sleep less, is a lot of meditation will actually keep you up. So it's not a magic cure-all. It has its properties. And that's one of those things. People who are very realized, a lot of times they don't sleep much, but when they're awake, they're not exhausted either. Their metabolism is sort of shifted in a way, I suppose. But anyway, so meditation may help you with XYZ, or it may not. You should test it out and see for yourself if that's going to help you. All right, so dullness and drowsiness. Okay, worry, restlessness, agitation. The classic instruction is this is where mindfulness of breathing, which is just the basic meditation practice, because if people will say this to still your thoughts. Well, stilling the mind, this can be a challenge if for people with who haven't been meditating for that long, and by that long I kind of mean years. Stilling the mind is something that didn't come to me for a very long time. But still, stilling the mind. Obviously, if you're not thinking thoughts, then you're probably not worried specifically about anything. But even so, even if your meditation practice is not that good, the more your attention is on your breath, the more you're able to just I mean, and you just feel it. It's like a whole body experience, the breath, you can let your mind just be completely occupied just by the sensation of breathing. That will pull you away from obsessive thoughts, and so it is, even at the beginning stages of meditation, it can be helpful for this. Just being able to step back from your thoughts a little bit so that they don't engulf you so completely. This can help ease your worry. And there's a famous Buddhist word for this, papancha. It's this idea of the churning mind. The hamster wheel is usually how teachers will introduce this concept, right? Because one thought leads to the next thought, the next thought, the next, and they're just coming so fast, and your mind is just, scampering through all the many terrible possibilities, whatever you're thinking about. So yeah, papancha, the mind is, and there's always some me and mine and what's good for me and what's going to happen to me. That's always involved in papancha. But it is certainly, related to this idea of worry and restlessness. Mental proliferation is how it gets translated a lot of times in English. And so, yeah, you're worried about something that you want to control, or you're worried about some disagreement that you have, and so you're inventing more and more reasons that you're right and they're wrong, right? This is papancha. And there's a famous sutta, the Honeyball Sutta. Papancha leads to disputes, accusations, quarrels, and fighting. Swords and clubs are taken up, and so being able to staunch that early in the process can be good for your health too, as well, in a lot of ways. All right, so sorry, that was ridiculous. Worry, so restlessness and worry, that what we just talked about. And then for doubt, this is my favorite. If you doubt the path, you're not sure the path is going to work for you, the traditional advice is inquire into the teachings. Buddhism is very confident. It's like, you don't think Buddhism's good for you? You haven't studied Buddhism enough. You will find, so anyway. You will find that there's an answer. And I always, as like I say, I probably already said it in this class. I have sort of rambled through most of the world's philosophies and religions, and I've only found one thing, that the more I push on it, the more it holds me up. Buddhism has not let me down yet. This is just my personal testimonial. Take it for what it's worth. That it's true. The more I lean into Buddhism and I study it, and it's like, what is the answer to XYZ? Does Buddhism have any advice for me? Eventually I will find something that actually helps. This is just my experience. Don't believe it just because I said it. Right. And so, so the warning, like I said, these techniques are just for particularly troublesome thoughts. You shouldn't be using these techniques all the time. Oh, and I left off the last one. There was one more bullet point. So this is the controversial one in the techniques for dealing with difficult thoughts. And that is, if you can't do anything else, it's just driving you mad, suppress the thought with willpower. This is the advice, but Thich Nhat Hanh thinks that this was inserted into the sutra as a mistake. Because there are other sutras where the Buddha says, and so I was following this teacher's teaching, and I was doing my ascetic practices, and where you just bear down on the mind with willpower and clench your teeth. And in that sutra, he says, and it could not resolve, my mental, defilements. I couldn't overcome it with brute force. But then there's this other sutra where it says, brute force not working, use more of it, right? That one again. So take that with a grain of salt. What's that?
All else fails, bigger hammer.
That's right. That's right. I mean, and I guess there's one of these things. I mean, I can remember a time early in my practice when I was just sitting up. My mind was churning, and I this was all I could do. I'm just going to clamp it down. And I think perhaps the benefit that you really might derive from it is this is your intention, because the mind follows the conscious intention. This is the only reason Buddhism works, or anything really, is that when you are just committed to not being obsessed with something, your unconscious mind will eventually help you, if it knows what your intent is. I mean, obviously, this is a complicated topic, but your mind will follow your intent. So anyway, I just give that with the caveat, that suppression is part of the traditional teachings, unless you agree with Thich Nhat Hanh or not.
Well, I mean, I seem to remember the origin tale of Buddha when he's falling around the ascetics on the wilds, that one of the periods that he did was that kind of sweat-inducing, one-pointed.
Right, where you're just trying to conquer the mind.
That he was able to do that for a month without fail, but when it's over, it's like he's back to normal.
Right, it doesn't actually solve the
really
problem.
changed.
So like I say, that's the controversial one. All of these others are pretty gentle and chill, but
Does it go with kind of your thought of staying on the mat when you want to get up? Is that the willpower?
Right, that's
like when you're really
one way to think about it.
You're getting uncomfortable. You're like, I have 1,000 things I want to do instead. Like all these things starts playing. It's that like sheer willpower.
That's a good example, because if you just say, no, I'm at 24 minutes, I'm going to make it to 30. Right, so I would kind of agree with that. That might be a good application for this one.
And in that, you wind up letting go. Like you wind up coming into a more peaceful state when you can get over, if you can stay in the willpower of it. And now that I've done that,
right.
I'm like, it'll pass. I know now that it'll pass.
It's like you convince the mind that you're serious, right?
Yeah, and it's like really trying hard to pull you away, and like you hear the kids playing outside in the snow, and it was pulling so hard, and I was like, well, but you also have all day. You can sit here for 30 minutes.
That's right. Just to make it through the thing. Well, that's good. See, I'm going to add that to my teaching for this.
Doug?
Yes.
Can you have her repeat the very first recommendation? It's a little murky in the audio.
Oh, sorry. Our audio
suggestion, but I don't know what it is. So just recap what she said.
Right. She was saying that when you're sitting on the meditation cushion and you're trying to stay seated, and you committed to this amount of time meditation, and you want to get there, that just bearing down on the mind, I will not get up, I will not stop early. That could be a constructive use of this last point, where if it's, just get through the few minutes of something, maybe bearing down on the mind is the right answer, because that shows your intent, right? So that was it. Sitting on the cushion. Finishing.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
I wanted
absolutely.
to say that I think it's better to call it, instead of bearing down or suppressing, staying with it or something like that, just.
Hunker down.
Right.
Because
Instead of being a fighting word, it being an embracing word.
Yeah,
Right.
the aggression is really what I think Thich Nhat Hanh was.
So maybe just redouble your commitment.
It sounds a lot like choosing intent over instinct.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it is true that if you're in a situation where you just are going to wallop somebody and you decide to bear down to prevent the wallop, probably another good application, If there's some immediate thing and it's like, nope, I've just got to get through this next 10 seconds without throttling this person. Right?
Well, the thing is, you want to meditate so you become familiar with how your mind's work.
Right.
So if you push it, stop it, repress it, you don't learn anything.
I want to do curiosity with it.
Yeah, there's
Changing that.
like, oh look, this is coming up. Let me just sit here for a minute, see what this is about, where this is going to go, what happens with it. That's a kind of bearing down too. It's not so.
Right, but you're just staying committed, right? You're not going to stop your meditation because it's uncomfortable or whatever.
I'm going to raise that, because there's a kind of, what I can see or feel, I know, experience in a way, is that bearing down can be more of a cutting. That is cutting your sloth or torpor.
Right.
Just like, and it's a refreshing, almost like a refreshing of your intent and then you let that go too.
Right.
You know, and I know that Chogyam Trungpa talked about cutting things like with a samurai sword.
Right, because that's Manjushri, right? Manjushri's sword of wisdom. You know when to cut.
But it doesn't need to be this continuous, just muscling it down by its
Right.
throat.
Right, but just serious.
It's just sort of like, yeah, get serious.
That's right. Very good. Very good. So these techniques are just for particularly troublesome thoughts. This is not how you should be doing what you should be doing all day. And I've actually had a therapist tell me that he has had patients from Theravadan cultures, and this is sort of the sin of Theravada. Is in a lot of Theravadan societies, the idea is no, emotions are bad. Just smash them down. You just don't. You shouldn't even acknowledge them. They're just they're bad. And of course in the branch of Theravada that I'm in, the forest tradition, now that's not the advice at all, but in Theravadan societies, that's what this gets turned into. It's like, emotions, just push them down, that's unwholesome, so don't even think it, just,
I want to say too, the Zen teacher that Sparks, when he came here, who was also a psychiatrist, he had that problem with Zen people.
Oh yeah, just too militant.
They were like, yeah, I'm just going to sit more.
Right, that's right.
Right?
That's right.
And then I'll be okay. And he was like, no, if you're hating yourself, you need to look at that.
Right.
Maybe you can sit more. But it's not a domination.
Right.
It's not. And so he came up with all these things he does with people. It was lovely, actually. But it has to do with, discipline tempered with kindness, compassion.
Right. Yeah, because if you're angry with your thoughts or afraid of your thoughts or pretending they don't exist, right, all of that is just going to make it stronger and stronger and stronger. Right? I mean, the idea, like Ajahn Sumedho always talks about how you need to see your thoughts as just dull. They're so uninteresting. It's like, that is so beside the point, I'm not even going to think about that right now because they're just dull, and I can think about it later all I want to, but right now I'm doing my meditation and it's like, all that stuff is inconsequential. He very famously said to a room full of monks, this wasn't a layperson talk, but he just looked at him and said, all your thoughts are garbage. And emphasizing this point, that when you are working on calming the mind, you need to see your thoughts as just unhelpful, uninteresting, at least for now. You can come back and obsess about them all you want later, right? But it's just a technique, one that I have personally found useful. It's like, there's just so much dumb stuff in my mind, I just can't take anymore, just calm down.
Thoughts then, because I read a little bit of Joe Beck when Nathan Smalley came in. And I'm still kind of dabbling in her every once in a while, but she talked about how thoughts do have a job.
That's right.
And I think you've even talked about it in one of these sessions where there are thoughts that are useful and needed, and it's like having
That's right.
that awareness
Yes.
when to entertain them, especially on the mat. Is it true that
That's
really
right.
none of those thoughts that are a to-do list type of thought are really necessary on the mat?
Well, it depends on what you're doing, right? Because the shamatha meditation, and that's really what this is about, is we're trying to calm the mind down and let go of our obsessions. But that's the shamatha side. When you get to the vipassana side, now you have some control over your mind. Your mind is tamed, at least to some extent, and so you can have this kind of calm, quiet place in your mind. But the reason you develop that, it's not an end in itself from the point of view of Theravada anyway, because you have the vipassana side, which is insight meditation. And now you're not trying to calm your thoughts down, you're just observing any thought that comes up. And the idea is your mind is now very calm and still, and things can come up slowly, and you can examine them very carefully because they're not just flipping through 50 a second. Now your mind is a laboratory and you have a microscope. Your mindfulness, that quiet mind, is where you can study in detail all of your neuroses, you know. And my famous story is Ajahn Amaro. He said that for several years, he could sit down and he would just think of one word to begin his insight practice. He would think to himself, mother. He had a difficult relationship with his mother, and it took him some time to kind of work through it, but that's what he studied in his Vipassana practice. Why is my relationship with my mother, you know, like obsessing me all the time? Everything that happens, I just can't let go of it, you know. And so, right, so you're not just trying to get rid of thoughts forever, you're creating a laboratory for thoughts.
Is that in the newer season, newer season of sitting, you are trying to create that calm space so that you can then allow these thoughts to come up without following rabbit hole and following the narrative that goes with
right,
it,
without getting lost in it
story,
again. Right.
And being curious. Because I've had a couple of those experiences where I'm like, I've explored
right.
kind of the underneath part of something versus going into all the details of
That's right. It's a different sort of thing because you're just getting the feel of it. You know, you're getting familiar with it. You're getting acquainted with this troublesome thought or whatever it is that you want to understand so that you can get beyond it. But just spinning around trying to think of solutions, well, you've already done that for years, right? And it was not helpful. And so this new idea is just for it to be your companion. You and that troublesome thing, whatever it is in your life, you're just going to sit and stare at each other until it finally either goes away, transforms into something else, or reveals its secrets, right? Eventually it will change. And you'll either be done with it, or you'll see what was really underneath it, or you will have a realization that changes your relationship to this thing. But that only comes from this sitting with. To bear with, this is what Ajahn Chah, his phrase, you have to bear with it. And so this takes strength and patience and perhaps a metta practice. If you're dealing with something, particularly difficult, you need to have a good, strong mind, good mindfulness, good metta, and then you can really hold it.
And so then would you say for a new practitioner, more practicing following the breath and strengthening the mind before you even start digging into some of that stuff?
You are your own teacher ultimately, right? And so if you want to try and see, well, can I hold this now steadily? Just try it. And if it's like, it's driving me crazy, okay, maybe not right now, right? So you decide how much shamatha and how much vipassana you need, right? It's that when you're getting too lost in the, you're studying your thoughts and you're losing your ground, come back to the breath, come back to the body, and then try again, right? So,
I want to throw in a thing.
yes,
Because
yes.
when the Buddha was talking about the problems, he was talking about muddy waters, meaning you can't see, right? So what you're after is being able to see clearly. That's the point. And the analogy that I like a lot of shamatha is you take a roaring river or something, and the water is muddy and full of debris and stuff. You scoop it up in a glass jar and set it down.
Right.
And what happens is all the sediment will settle naturally. So you're not like working on it. You just are creating a container that allows that clarity to come, okay? And if you can, so the energy of containing the container is fine. You can, keep your posture. You can put effort there. You can put effort into the time, guarding the time that you have, and not letting it be distracted. But the effort is not in making the water clear, because that happens by itself.
Right.
And then when the water's clear, you can start seeing things you weren't seeing before, and it's fine to look at them. It's fine when they come up. You have this realization about this, or an insight, or whatever. You can follow it because it's clear.
Right.
I like that a lot.
Right. So you can't force your mind to behave. That's not what this is about. That's why the bearing down is so controversial, because what you're really doing is you are setting up the conditions so that your mind will settle naturally, right? This is what we're about. So if you have the sense of, I've got to make my meditation work, no, it's not. You're just putting more energy into it, you know.
But there's energy, there is effort, and the effort
There
is
is
creating
energy,
space
right.
within a system and structure of a container.
That's
I
right.
love that word container.
I do too.
That's right. You're, you know, part of that taming is right to, instead of just being in the jungle, right, we want to be in the pasture with a little fence around it so that our horses are behaved and things aren't just crazy all around us, maybe, I don't know. Anyway.
A very concrete little example just from my life that was very helpful to me, but it's also small enough that I can talk about it, is that, so I don't remember when we started this, but several years ago, I was trying meditation, and I bought a tape, I bought a book, I'm gonna give it 30 days and see what happened.
Right.
And I didn't.
Right, didn't stick.
I didn't know. But there was a person whom I had to deal with occasionally, not very often.
Right.
And he just, and I don't know why.
Right.
I knew I had to meet with him the next day, and I was already annoyed. I mean,
Right.
it ruined 2 whole days out of the week to meet with him for 30 minutes because I was worried
Right.
about it beforehand, the meeting was unpleasant, and then the next day. So,
Right.
without really believing it, without thinking it was going to do anything, thinking I was just checking off a little box on my list of what I said I was going to do these 30 days.
Right.
I did a loving kindness meditation where it's, just first meet with someone you care about. And I remember very clearly the instruction was, pick someone, but not your arch nemesis. Pick someone, just someone who's a little annoying. And without really, with that invested in it, I thought, it's whatever, I can pick anyone I want, doesn't matter. I picked this person.
Right.
And then spent 5 minutes. It was 5 minutes out of my day. It was
Right.
nothing. And just did this little loving kindness thing. And whatever, didn't think about it, went on with my day, whatever. And then I met with him the next week. And but it was after a couple of weeks that I just thought, wait, what changed?
Right.
Nothing changed.
Right.
So it's not that I solved a problem, it's not that I sorted something out, it's not that there was a conclusion, it's not.
I think that's also it too.
It just
shows
Right.
up later.
It just was. It was just over. And it was so much easier. So that is when I thought,
Right.
I think this might work.
Right. So what he was saying was he had just took this little 30-day meditation course, and so for 5 minutes a day he was doing loving kindness, and he picked this person that was just driving him crazy, and it really happened, right? Your ill will was replaced, maybe not with loving kindness, but at least with not ill will that's driving you crazy, right? It just evaporated.
This person returned to the place that 15-minute meeting once a week should have.
Right.
It took up 2 days.
What do you
Right.
think
And honestly, it took up
about the loving kindness meditation
I think
project
they're
today?
fantastic. Before I thought they seemed ridiculous.
Right.
But
It seems so
works.
silly.
Aspect
But
of
it works.
do you think brought you to this resolution?
Oh, it's a fantastic question. And the most honest answer I can give is, I have no idea. I mean, I can
Right.
guess, and I'll tell you the guess that my rationalization to myself was that I had a mental rut. There was this habit, there was this pattern, and this his voice, his name, the item on my calendar conjured up these things. I don't know why that happened. And this just erased that rut. I
Right.
don't know how.
Wow. One peg out with another, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah, meditation or metta meditation was very transformative for me. When I just did it I did it every day for a month, and everything was different after that.
Yeah.
I was just on a little different wavelength, and my regular meditation practice improved. That really is kind of a cure-all. Well, and I think just so many of us, we do get in these negative states so easily, and we can be so negative about ourselves. I mean, that's the killer for Western people, is we grow up with a poor self-image, it seems, compared to some other cultures and other times and places. And so metta can be a lifesaver, when you're able to treat yourself and other people with a little bit of compassion.
Well, the fundamental idea of the Buddha is that the mind is already perfect.
That's right.
And
That's the
everything
Mahayana.
wants to go to this wholeness and wholesomeness, and you just have to stop preventing it from doing
That's
that.
right. That's right.
And so that is what you're letting your brain rewire itself
Right.
by breaking these habits. But it isn't aggressive. It isn't. It's just like, let me try this, see what happens, and then whoop, it happens.
But it seemed almost like a magic trick. and like a good magic trick. Like I don't even want to know why it works. I'm like
Don't look behind the curtain. Right. So he was saying, I don't know, that metta for him, it was like a magic trick. It's hard to say why it works, but it does. And we are all in agreement, I think, on this. Those of us who have experience with the effects of
You
metta.
don't have to go as far as to getting, or at least not right away, getting to actually having any positive feelings about.
No, I still don't like the guy.
Right.
But it's just
neutral place.
Right. But that, it's kind of like that one peg with another, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's like you had a lot of angst and ill will, and the metta kind of knocks that off track, and then you haven't turned into a teddy bear, but you're not just obsessed anymore.
Yes.
You've managed to get off that track one way or the other. And so you're not just walking around, spreading daffodils or whatever, that's fine. It's not necessary for metta practice, but you're out of the ill will.
I'll tack on one more little thought here that I wasn't going to share, but I think I'll try it and see what happens. In the last month, maybe a month and a half, I don't remember why I started this. It was just a little experiment I thought I would try. I've always done the metta's, me first, and then someone who's easy, and then someone who's harder,
Right.
and everything.
The standard.
I realized that I skipped past those first steps pretty quickly.
Right.
So for about a month, I've been doing a metta practice. Not much, 10 minutes. That's just me.
Just you, right?
And I realized that I've always skipped that. Not skipped it, I did it.
Right.
I did
It was never emphasized,
But
right?
I just thought, we're getting on to the step. I've been amazed at how much that has helped. And I think I avoided it because I just thought it was selfish.
Right. I mean, this is still controversial.
Yeah.
And because here's the thing, the Buddha did not teach that method. This came up about 500 years later, Buddhaghosa, The Path of Purification, in this very famous commentary. Well, I forget what, it was 100 or 200 AD, I don't know. A long time ago, but not the Buddha. He came up with this idea, or he wrote down this idea that it had probably already been around about walk through the 5 types of people, and there, and there's somebody right now, I've had long arguments about whether, is this just selfishness or whatever, but so many of us have found this so incredibly helpful, to, begin with yourselves, or if you can't stand yourself that much, start with your dog, but then yourself, and then loved one, and then the problem people or whatever, but it's like, we needed it. It seems like Buddhaghosa there's a lot of things I don't like about what Buddhaghosa's book says, but he was right about that. My arguments with him are about advanced meditation techniques. That was all. But his metta practice, that is like saving Western civilization to me. This is very helpful.
Learn to be kind to yourself, you'll be kinder to other people.
That's the thing.
And if you're supposed to have loving kindness or compassion for all living beings, it's nice to acknowledge that you yourself are included.
That's right. You are one of the bunch. That's right.
And somehow it was easy to do everybody. It was even easy to do this guy, my arch nemesis. But it turns out it took 6 or 7 years to get back to me. And that's been really helpful.
Right? That's right.
Are you You know all the worst parts.
That's it.
Yes, we are our own worst critics. All right, very good. Well, we're a little past time, and we're only part of the way through right effort, but that's okay. There's a little slack in the schedule. We will make it. So we'll finish right effort and presumably start talking about, because really the wholesome states of mind, they're really a lead into meditation. And so that's the way I'm going to treat them. So we'll finish up right effort next time and start talking about right mindfulness. And we'll be on that for a couple of sessions.
Yeah, thank you everybody for sharing.
Yes, such a good group. Very good. Online people, we're all good, I hope.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take
That
care.
was excellent, excellent. Thank you.
Until next time, bye-bye.